Apologies for any noise in the background, the furnace has decided to turn on while I'm sitting here. Masterpiece has given us a lot of redos on toys. Starscream, Megatron, Optimus, Bumblebee. I kind of want a new Soundwave because the old one is so damn hard to get, but there are some toys that don't need 2.0s just yet in my mind. And one of those is this guy right here, Prowl. Prowl is such a damn good Masterpiece toy. This mold looks stunning, and it has really held up. So much that it's gotten re-released in slightly different decos to be more cartoon accurate for those who want that. They didn't remake the mold, they just put some new paint on it and re-released it. This base version to me fits so well with the new MP aesthetic, and I mean, after Skids, I'm going all in on the new Masterpiece stuff. Cheaper prices for nicer MP toys, count me in. Like, how the hell is Jetfire only $274? MP44 was almost $600, depending on where you got it. That's really good. If you have the Earthrise version of the Datsun mold, then you'll have experienced this in some capacity. The Earthrise version borrows a lot of engineering cues or aspects from this guy. The colors are very simple but look really nice. They feel to me like a 2008 to 2010 Universe Generations type paint like toy. It's also the Toys R Us version from Hasbro. The separation between them is simple but effective. He has a lot of white, but the bits of black and silver really help it from looking too boring. I love all the sculpting on this guy. The tooling work is done pretty well. It's not too busy looking and it's also not bland. It strikes a nice balance between the two looks and it just works super well for this guy. Better than some of the others we've gotten. I do like the flip out dinky shoulder cannons. I like the little bit where they extend. That's a nice touch. I'm not the biggest fan of the feet. I've never been a huge fan of how these look on particular toys. To me, it makes the legs look more like they're bowing in a bit when standing there. The Earthrise version doesn't really have this issue to me because the lower leg sections are a nicer shape, but it's just something noticeable. It's not the worst thing, but I'm not a fan of it. My mom thinks the feet look cool because it looks just like the back of the car and it's clearly defined chunks, and she likes that. And that part of it is cool, how they use a portion of the car to become the foot, and it's clearly just a part of the car. I like that aspect. It's always nice when you can tell that the robot actually turns into something else and it's using those bits of vehicle in a really practical way. His gun is all silver and looks very lush, but my copy struggles holding it. The tabs in the hands don't really sit properly, which is pain. One thing I love about the MP toy line is how good they look next to the G.I. Joe 3/4 toys. Like, this display to me works very well. Thank you Hasbro, by the way, for sending over a ton of G.I. Joe figures randomly. This is how I'm going to display them. This is the toy that made me want to get more Masterpiece toys. Like, it's so simple yet fun. You can kind of do this SS86 Jazz thing with the legs to cheat a deeper knee bend, which is how I achieve a deeper knee bend in certain shots in this video. Every time I sit down with this guy, posing him around is a real joy. I'll show you a couple of poses of this guy because he looks awesome. I do wish he had a stand port, but this was before they started putting those on most of their toys. The actual posing is very good. It's very expressive in a lot of places. The ball joint in the shoulders allows for a butterfly hinge as well, pseudo kinda, which is really cool. I do wish the head was on a ball joint. Otherwise, the arms have such a wide range and the legs are very stable. He has really long heels, so that's nice. I wish he had better hip articulation because they hit the hip skirt and don't move forward as much as I'd like to, like MP10. Transformation is very simple and pretty straightforward. It's like Earthrise. If you've ever messed with that one, you get the gist of this one. The only real fiddly bit is the side windows. They have a tendency to get stuck under the doors when you tab them in, so you have to lift them up with one nail while pushing the doors closed. It's not super difficult, but it's something that you just have to kind of like learn when you first get it. Car mode looks so damn good. My dad, who's a huge car nut, absolutely loves this alt mode. And this toy, this alt mode, has a special place for me because this was my very first TFCon in 2012. I went there and they had an actual car like this sitting in front of the hotel. It was painted like Prowl. It had a Masterpiece Prowl on the dashboard. It was so cool to see. And that's why I went for this deco out of all the Prowls that exist, like all the Masterpiece versions, because that was my first ever convention I'd ever gone to. And it was my first TFCon I ever went to, and that was sitting out front, and little young me was like, oh, that's so cool. So I love this car mode. I think it's great, and that's why I went for this particular version of the mold. The car is so dense. It feels very good in hand. Like nothing feels fragile. Everything just feels solid and robust. It's a very nice size too, both with MPs and those Joes I mentioned earlier. This whole thing just is pretty sick looking. The gun can store on the top too. I do wish it stored underneath to hide it away, like a lot of the other Masterpiece toys could have used it as like an exhaust, but that's my only major gripe about the car mode. This thing is just, it's a banger. And with most recent Masterpiece toys kind of following this standard, I'm very hopeful for the future of Masterpiece. MPG, Nightbird, Skids and all of its redecos, Trailbreaker, Jetfire, they all, for their price, they all look really, really good. And the prices are going down on the Masterpiece toys. They're averaging out at something that I can reasonably afford. Masterpiece MP44, stupid overpriced thing. I say get this. It's fairly cheap for a Masterpiece toy in the secondary market. I got mine for $60 Canadian brand new, so finding one isn't super hard, and there are plenty of decos to tickle your fancy. I definitely say get this. It's a great starting Masterpiece toy like Skids at a semi-affordable price if you want to get your foot in the door of Masterpiece collecting. So yeah, it's awesome. But that's my look at Masterpiece Prowl. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.